Hey y'all, this is Laura and I have a DIY embellishment tutorial for you today. This time we are doing some mixed media layered butterflies. Now you don't have to do them mixed media. You could do pattern paper backgrounds for these butterflies or any shape you like. Really, it's going to be mostly dependent on what kind of punches or dies that you have at your disposal. And if you don't have either, that's okay too. It's simply picking a shape and cutting it out. You could do hearts, you could do circles, whatever works for you. So I'm going to start by adding some watercolor to some basil marshmallow cardstock, which takes on watercolor beautifully. Most white cardstock will bend and fall apart when you get it wet. This cardstock does not. So that is why I'm using it for the watercolor. And just spreading around some complementary colors. I'm using some pinks and purples, a little bit of red, some teal, and a blue. I'm not going to use anything that's going to make this turn muddy. I'm trying to avoid some of the oranges and yellows and greens that may turn this muddy. Sticking to complementary colors can avoid that. On this side, I'm going to use some Dylusions paints, and I absolutely love Dylusions paints. I use it quite a bit in my art journal. They have so much pigment in them. They are rich, rich colors, and you don't have to use a lot of paint. I've had these little pots now for 6-7 months, something like that, and I am nowhere near using them up. They will probably last me a good long time. So again, I'm going to use the same complementary colors, but sticking to a more limited color scheme with these, mostly because I don't have that many of these beautiful Dylusions paints. So I'm just going to use some purple, this lovely light pink, and some teal. And just going to spread those around the page using a little sponge dauber that is recommended for their use. And any extra paint, I'm just smearing into my art journal so that it doesn't get wasted. So this is that gorgeous teal. I don't remember the names of the pink and purple, but the teal I do. It's Calypso Teal, and it is absolutely stunning. Look at this color. Oh my goodness. It's one of my favorite colors to scrapbook with. And that's pretty much the color scheme that I chose here, were colors that I most often scrapbook with, or at least enjoy scrapbooking with most often. And I know that when I punch out these butterflies, they're not going to have these big blocks of color on them. They're going to have little bits of each of the colors, and hopefully that will make them easier to use on a variety of layouts. So now that I've spread the color everywhere, I had originally thought that I would use my black Dylusions paint to put through a stencil. And after looking at it, decided, you know what? I have some rather lovely, brand new Vicki Boutin rose gold glaze, and that would add a really cool shine onto this page. It would give them just a little bit of glimmer, a little bit of something extra, I think, and just kind of spread that around the page. So this first stencil, I'm fairly certain, is a Tim Holtz stencil, and it has some overlaying circles, and then it also has just some kind of polka dots. And just going to spread those two around the page just randomly, just wherever my little heart desires, really. Just going to spread those around, add just a little bit of shimmer in several spots. And then I'm going to pull out a really pretty floral stencil that I have had in my stash for a little while. And I've decided, oh, you know what, let's use that one on this Dylusions side. And it was gorgeous. It was just perfect for this. And once I get done spreading that all around the Dylusions side, I do end up going back and adding it onto the watercolor side as well, because it was such a delicate design. And I could tell already that when I punched out my butterflies, having that very delicate design is not going to show up as boldly as the little polka dots and the overlaying circles will. So I did decide to go ahead and add that to both of them. And also I'm using up the rose gold glaze. That's the other part of that, is I didn't want to waste any of that beautiful glaze. So now that that's done, I pulled out my StazOn because that's kind of my go-to black ink, and grabbed this absolutely gorgeous floral stamp. It is a huge stamp. I believe it's A4 in size, and I want to say it came from Prima, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I did order it from scrapbook.com. That's all I remember. And it's new. So, of course, I want to use it. And I'm just going to stamp this gorgeous floral in all of the spots that don't have glaze, so that on the butterflies, if it doesn't have a glazed area, it's going to have this beautiful black, big contrasted floral. And when this is done, and I look at these 2 pages, my first thought was, honey, that's a hot mess. Because it was. Oh, and it does it not? It looks like a hot mess. But I promise you, it gets better. As it always does with mixed media projects, you just have to keep going. So now I've cut them down into some 2.5 to 3 inch strips. And I'm going to use these little dies from Tim Holtz. They're layered butterflies, and there's 4 dies. There's 2 backgrounds and 2 detailed butterflies. So you'll have 2 layers. I'm also going to punch out some vellum in blue, pink, and white to use as a layer as well. So just going to run them through my little tiny Sizzix Sidekick. And this is kind of new for me, actually. I normally use my Cameo, but I really was getting tired of having to run to the computer to use the Cameo for little projects like this. For my larger cut files, absolutely, I want to use the Cameo. I need that 12 by 12 space to cut on. But for little projects like this, little DIY embellishments, it's so much easier to just use the little Sidekick. So I've popped these out, and I'm going to show you how these came out. Now, this little die, I did leave this in to show you. This little die is very, very detailed, and because it's detailed, there's a lot of little pieces to poke out of that butterfly. And I love, love, love how they came out, but it took me forever to poke those out of every single little butterfly. And also the butterfly itself kind of got stuck inside of the die, so I did have to finagle with it just a little bit to get it out. So that, I think, probably took the longest of the entire process, was getting those little detailed butterflies ready. So here they are. All the butterflies are cut out. As you can see, I have a variety of colors going on here. And I'm going to show you in real time how I assembled the butterflies. And then I sped it up through a few other options here so that you could see not just the detailed butterfly, but also a punched butterfly that I used one of my EK Success punches to make. And also a layered heart that I did as well with my punches. Okay, so I'm putting the detailed die cut on top, the full vellum in the center, and the full mixed media piece on the back. That way you are going to see, when you lift up the wings, you're going to see the vellum, you're going to see the bottom, but the top really shines. And it looks fantastic. Now, because I've stapled it with my little tiny attacher, that piece is not coming apart. It's very securely put together, but I have to cover up that staple because that staple is not very pretty. So for this butterfly, I'm going to use some white Nuvo drops and just create a head and body for the butterfly. And I'm going to be a little bit particular about it because Nuvo drops can be a little bit finicky. So if you're not comfortable with Nuvo drops or stickles or something along that line, even glossy accents would work, though I think I would paint the center black first before applying the glossy accents since it is clear. But then I'm going to open up the butterfly wings and it's done. Very simple, very easy, and a lot of fun to make. There are some other options here though. If you're not comfortable with the Nuvo drops or stickles or something along that line, you can also use some rhinestones. I do end up using some pearl rhinestones on one of these little butterflies, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But I also wanted to show you the variety of colors that I got out of those papers. So this one here is a watercolored butterfly. The previous one was a Dylusions paint, and you can tell from the vibrancy which one's which. The watercolor, this one's a watercolor one as well. And it's just not as bright, it's a little more pastel, but I think that's good. I have a big variety of these now to use on my layouts. So for this one, I am using these tiny little pearl rhinestones that I've had in my stash forever. Absolutely love how that came out too. So here's a pink one. I've had purple, I've had teal, I've got bright pink. So this, such a fun little DIY embellishment that I absolutely encourage you to try. This one, again, I'm going to use those little pearls on. There we go. And I'm using 3 of the small pearls and then 4 or 3 or 4, depending on which butterfly, because one of them has a longer body than the other. I'm using of the little bitty tiny ones at the end. So there we go, that one is just about done. And then I'm going to show you the punched butterfly that I did a little bit differently, just to have a little bit of variety, because I love variety in my embellishments. I don't want all of them to look the same. These were punched from this EK Success punch, and it's just a large butterfly punch, and I also did the vellum. And then I'm just going to staple them in the center, and again, create the body with some Nuvo drops. Super simple, super easy. These are a little less dimensional than the 3-layered butterflies, but that may be better if you don't like the thick dimensional embellishments. This might be a better option for you. I also decided to punch out some hearts in 2 different sizes, and I'm going to layer those here. I have the vellum on top of the mixed media paper, and then a smaller heart in the center. Again, stapling it to hold them all together, and then I'm just going to add some pearls in the middle to cover the staple. That's it, guys. I hope you give these embellishments a try. Let me know in the comments what you think. Until next time, bye!